Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Road to Recovery podcast. I'm your host, Gino Leonard, and this is episode number 5. For episode number 5, we have a very special guest and my own teammate, Padraig Lang. Pod, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you, Gino.
Yeah, of course, man. Give us a little introduction about yourself. Where are you from? How long you've been at the university? Just kind of your backstory.
My name's Padraig Lang. I'm from Bozeman, Montana. I went to Bozeman High School, and I've been here at the university. This is my 3rd season, and I'm a junior in school studying accounting. I play safety for the Grizzlies, and yeah.
Heck yeah. All right. So this spring, Pod kind of had to start his little struggle here, adversity through the injury train, but I'll let Pod get into that. So your injury, take us through it. What happened?
So it was middle of March. We were out there in the cold playing spring ball with each other. And I was coming out of a back pedal, reached back, and tore my Achilles.
Yeah, it's crazy. It kind of just looked like there's someone on the roof and just sniped him and put him down. It was crazy. It was just like nobody was around him. Nobody had any idea what was going on. But you had the Achilles rupture. After that, what was next? Surgery?
Yeah, right away. They pretty much knew right away that that's what it was. The trainers knew. And then I had surgery 4 days later, and it lined up with spring break. So I spent the week at home, and then I was on the tracks trying to get back.
Could you feel like your Achilles ball up in your calf? Like most people say they can see it ball up and stuff, and some people say it doesn't even hurt too bad.
Yeah, no, I didn't feel mine ball up, but it was a super sharp, it was super sharp pain, but it was hard to pinpoint. It felt like the whole backside of my, and granted I tore mine a little bit higher up in the Achilles, but yeah, it felt like my whole backside of my calf was just burning.
Mentally in that moment, kind of what were you thinking? Like, did you have any idea that's kind of what was going on?
Yeah, well, initially when I ran off the field, I thought someone had stepped on me, had ran behind me and stepped on my heel when I planted. So I was like, gosh, that kind of sucks. That's going to be a, kind of a tough nagging injury to get over the rest of spring ball. But then when JC told me that nobody had stepped on me, then I knew that something major was wrong. And initially it was just like a wave of frustration. Yeah. Like you just immediately start thinking about the future and like, oh my gosh, like the world is ending. So I started slamming the side of the stadium. Yeah. But for me, it was pretty quick to realize, like, all right, this isn't a very big deal. Like, it's just God's way of giving me a test.
No, definitely. It's one of those situations where it's hard to look small picture, day by day. It's whenever you have any adversity like this, it's hard to really put it into perspective. It takes a lot of things. I mean, prayer. I mean, it takes, help from others. Just kind of really putting your what's going on into perspective, but that's hard for anybody to do, any situation. But Pod's done a great job of it so far. I mean, he's killing his rehab process and his recovery so far. So take the people through it. Like, what were your steps, like the restrictions, like the stuff they lifted off you from the start to kind of where you are now?
Yeah, the Achilles is a tricky one because the protocol has changed so much for it in recent years. They used to, as soon as you got done with surgery, that Achilles is really stiff because they just reattached it, so they would try to loosen it up right away. And they've recently found out that that's not the right way to approach it. You want to let it sit in a relaxed, planar flexed position. Yeah, is this planar flexed?
Yeah.
Dorsal flex?
Yep.
In a planar flexed position so that your Achilles isn't getting stretched out, and it can heal like that. And so then gradually in the walking boot they had me in, they took out wedges so that my foot was less and less planar flexed so I could heal. And because the point is you don't want the Achilles muscle to stretch out and then be loose, because then you won't have your springiness out of it like you used to have it.
Yeah, and don't look into what Aaron Rodgers is doing, because that is not normal medicine for the most part. Don't think that all Achilles are that easy to come by. if Pod had to just kind of sit in the pocket and scramble not much and just play quarterback, he'd be back at the same duration as Aaron Rodgers. But
Agreed.
yeah, his was a much different process that he went through. Pod had to take the more normal, I guess, route to it, I'd say. But overall, just your mentals going through this recovery process, how have those been? Have you been able to lean on people and talk with people going through it?
Yeah, I haven't really encountered a really difficult moment in the whole rehab process, which is kind of crazy because I definitely expected to, especially you're used to practicing every day and being able to do the same thing as all your buddies, and then being taken away from that, you'd expect to be really depressed and people talk about it like you would. But for me, it really hasn't been that way. But I think it's in credit to the way that I've approached my rehab. I haven't approached my rehab with the end goal being getting back to playing football as well as I can ASAP. I've approached it as its own challenge and not really even thought about getting back to playing football, but just overcoming the challenge itself. And for some reason, that taking that mindset into it has helped me a lot because, let's face it, if you're always thinking about the end result of coming back and playing football, that seems fun and nice. But for me, that motivation wasn't going to be there every day, and I knew that. But overcoming the challenge itself and not getting beat by the challenge was always going to be able to motivate me. And that's helped me stay disciplined in my rehab and stay cheerful through the process.
No, I like that. That's a great perspective and a good lens to put it through. I mean, ultimately, it's not about, at the end of the day, we're much more than football players. It's our life is not going to be over if this recovery were to prevent us from being as good of a football player we once were. I mean, overall, we're going to be fathers. We're going to want to be able to play with our kids one day. It's like having a healthy back or a healthy Achilles to be able to run around with your kids and stuff like that. I mean, that's much more important than, being able to be a much better football player in the moment. You know what I'm saying? It's you kind of got to look at it day by day rather than grand scheme of things for the most part.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you say that what you're going through right now, having to have your schedule is already busy enough with football, but now you got to add training room every day, PT sessions a couple times a week. Would you say your schedule has kind of gotten jammed up even more, you'd say, and this whole experience is going to help you get through any other adversity you get through in your life and something that gets thrown your way?
Yeah, I would absolutely say that this is going to help me get through adversity in the future. Just thinking back to when I initially started rehab, just the amount of hours I was putting in, I think, compared to the amount that I was putting in before, it wasn't drastically increased, but there's definitely I was putting in more time because I still had to have the same obligations I had before. I had to go to practice, I had to go to class, I had to lift, I had to do all those things, but then I had an extra hour of rehab, an extra 30 minutes of ice, whatever it was. So chunking that time out and staying disciplined and committed to that has been difficult at times, but I've been able to stick to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been good to, be able to still feel, we're a part of the team, we're doing everything with the team, but we have this added element of, we got to get our rehab done. We got to be able to do certain things and stay on top of things. I mean, every day you kind of wake up and think what can I do to help my, just get 1% healthier day by day almost. It's what can I do? What should I be doing? But ultimately we have some good trainers and, good, strength coaches that have been helping us out, I'd say. I mean, they've had a solid plan so far, and I think Pod's experienced that, and I think that, he looks great right now, and I think he's a step ahead of where some people thought he'd be at this point. I mean, would you say your recovery's been a little bit accelerated?
Yeah, I think it definitely has. It definitely was accelerated for sure coming into this football season, and I kind of suffered a hiccup 2 weeks ago when I was doing some sprints, which kind of has slowed me down recently, but I was feeling really good before that. Yeah.
It's one of those things, I've said this on most of our episodes, but it's the recovery path is not going to be a consistent, just upward battle. I mean, you're going to plateau, you're going to dip down a little bit, but ultimately it's just looking for those little chunks, those little baby steps of getting better and feeling better. And you got to really hang your hat on those milestones. You can't really get yourself sunk in the past for the most part. Would you have any advice for any other people? So, like, say a teammate of ours came up to you and they saw what you went through and they just suffered a bad injury. Would you have any advice to them?
The biggest thing I would say is, I kind of mentioned earlier, is don't look at it as your rehab as a means to get back to the sport you want to play. Look at it as a challenge in of itself and attack that challenge directly. And don't let yourself get beat by that challenge.
No. And
also, I would say talk to people that have went through major injuries, because I've talked to a lot of people, and watching them rehab, even not even major injuries, but smaller injuries, like watching other people rehab that knew what they were doing, has helped me understand what it takes to rehab correctly.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's good advice for anybody in any situation. So, current status. What's the rest of your recovery looking like? When can the people expect Pod Lang to be back 100% and feeling great?
Yeah, so I think Pod Lang at the moment is able to run around and play football at a 90% level. And I think that 10% is just going to come from that last little bit of range of motion and strength in my Achilles and calf. And I think I could get there I think I could be there really soon. It's just, for me, we have winter condo starting in February, spring ball starting up in March, and my goal is to be 100% by those training sessions. So I'm not, like right now, I'm kind of taking it easy trying to nurse this injury this small hiccup that I suffered a couple weeks ago. So I'm kind of timing it out for them.
Yeah, I like it. That's all we got for today. I'd like to thank our special guest, Pod Lang, for joining the podcast. Thank you, Pod.
Thank you, Gino.
Yeah, you bet, man. All right, that's all we got for episode number 5. Thank you all for listening in, and until next time, thank you.